Laura Trevelyan here again, and I'm here for your second little adventure into the unknown of the digital world. So today we are going to be having a look at the National Library of Australia's digital archive, Trove. And we're going to have a look at how to use and what the uses for old newspapers. So let's get started. So here we are on the Trove cover page, and because we may as well have a look at something interesting, we're going to start out with Katoomba and murder. So I've put that into the search engine and press search, and we'll see what starts to come up. Of course, you really can put anything in there, and if you have ever wondered, I don't know what I'm going to write my story on, well, here is the answer. This has literally thousands of stories out there. So this is the archive, and we're going to have a look at the digitized newspapers. This is one of my favorite places on the internet. So Katoomba Murder gives us a list of all the newspaper articles that have Katoomba and murder in them, either in their title or somewhere in the text. Down this side, we have a list of different states, different publications, and different types of articles. So we're going to click on one of these. This is from 1917. This is an article about a very famous murder at the time. It was the death of George King by twins, the Shaw brothers, only one of whom actually, when you go into the story, did the killing, but they were both arrested. And so you can enlarge it, you can shrink it. Sometimes they look particularly bad. Over here, you can download. I personally like using a PDF. And when you use a PDF, you can change the size. So you just go to that to download, or you can change the size. If the print is particularly small, I find going for the largest size you can get can make it clearer. So you then download the PDF, and we're having a look, and this you can then print or save, which makes it very, very useful, so you're not having to sit there scribbling things down, and you can save these onto your computer or onto a thumb drive, onto your hard drive. Makes it very useful. They're all labeled, so you don't have to wonder what on earth am I downloading. And it's a great way of getting all your notes together. So what you can then do is, once you find a tasty little story, as this one is, you can then start putting in names or keywords that will help you find more about this story. I've put in Keith Shaw, and what do you know? We get lots and lots and lots of stories about this, and you can follow it through time, follow it through across the publications. This was a very big story at the time, so it was found in a lot of publications, and by being able to look at lots and lots of different publications, you're able to get more and more story, contradictory bits and this, that and the other, but you get more and more story. Some stories, they only appear in like one newspaper. Others are huge stories and very, very popular and are syndicated across many, many papers at the time. So if you get a really tasty story, you can take that all over the place, as you can see. Now, just so what we see here, again, we see he had an appeal. We have various different parts of the story. So this one is one that I wanted to use for this because it just is so detailed. You go all the way from arrest all the way to committed to trial and sentencing and the rejection of the appeal. The one thing that isn't in there is actually information about the actual hanging. This one is one, and I downloaded this because it's actually quite the quality, I wanted to show you the fact that the quality on these isn't always the greatest. So this is where searching multiple papers can really help. These are old papers, they've been scanned in, and that can become a bit of a problem. So sometimes you have to hunt around to find it. Other times, you know, it's just a matter of patience and picking your way through damaged type. Next to the things, there's sometimes there's a translation of it, or a transliteration of it, and it's not always useful. Now, it's not just useful for finding stories. I use this also to find things. So I've put in shoes, Katoomba 1925, and it asked me if I want this to be the year 1925, so I click yes, and I'm looking down at all the references to shoes. And then coming down here, I decide I only want to look for advertisements for shoes, because what I'm looking for is how much do shoes cost? Where can I buy shoes? So this kind of research, you might be researching a town, looking at advertising from the time, from the place. This is especially good for historical research, any kind of historical novel. This is fabulous stuff. You can then find what kind of shops were selling what, how much they sold it for, where they were. I find this is enormously useful. I use Trove as a writer to find information about, to find story inspiration, to find information to flesh out the towns, to flesh out gossip, all sorts of different things that are possible. Now, we have the digitized newspapers is what I use most of the time, because I'm looking for historical references. This one, I was looking at narrative stuff, so you can use the different tags. Didn't like what I found, went back. Then what we have is the possibility of having a look at journal articles, data sets. Some of these are much harder to use because they're not digitized. They're things that you have to request from the National Library, which does make them a little bit more difficult. So this is diaries and letter archives. But if you are wanting to make a trip down to, I think this is Canberra, then this is a good way of working out what you're going to look at and put in a request before you go. So this is having a look at vaudeville Tivoli programs and seeing what the option was. This is still using shoes and Katoomba as our keywords. So these are the things that come up. It really is quite a rabbit hole. You can get rather lost in it. But this is Trove. It is well worth having a look and playing around with it. The worst thing you'll do is you'll spend an afternoon looking at some strange old stuff. But as a writer, it is the most wonderful resource. As if you're looking up family history, this is a great resource. There are lots and lots of reasons to use this, lots of reasons to get on, and I strongly encourage you to do so. Right, I hope you found that informative. I hope it raised some good ideas about what is research, what you can find, what is a useful source. Now so far we've had a look at only primary sources. Primary sources, of course, being those that are produced at the time of the historical event. So we've had a look at newspaper articles, what they can tell us. We've had a look at searching through newspaper articles to get to a wider story by following an individual, and we've had a look at advertisements and how they can help us flesh out the world that we are creating. So I hope you have found that informative and useful, and we will pick up with our third installment cyber searching across secondary sources next time I see you. And so once we get there, when I see you again, hopefully you will have more treasure and an even fuller bullet journal to start your writing. Remembering, of course, that Black Cocky Press writing courses do have whole lessons on research and how to use research in your novel. So remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in another couple of weeks. Bye.